purpose, such as the Oracle, the Kingmaker, the Train Man.
What's going on my YouTube? It is your boy Ghostface Gaming, aka former candidate Don Tyler, City Council City Large. All the ballots are not in yet, but man, it doesn't look good for the kid. I am sitting at 773 votes right now. Got a few messages from other constituents. We're really not strategic about this race. There are bigger things and bigger plans coming forward. As far as the mayor is concerned, it's going to be a runoff race for the mayor. Man, we got to have a conversation.
And red pill, which would answer the long-standing question of what would happen if someone took the blue and red pill. Also, in one of Morpheus's figures, he is dressed in red, and in the other, he is dressed in blue.
We got to have this conversation.
Maybe in part of the film, the new Morpheus will live in ignorance, and in another part, he will awaken. In the trailer, we saw the new Morpheus dressed similar to an agent, and later as a red pill. So will we see two Morpheuses? One good, and one working for the enemy? Another important detail about the Funko Pops is Neo and Trinity's clothes. In the trailers, Neo does dress in a dark overcoat, similar to the previous trilogy, but he does not wear the iconic sunglasses. Neither does Trinity. Maybe we will have to wait until the third act of the movie to see these people dressed in their iconic outfits. The last Funko Pop is Neo painted in Matrix code that glows in the dark, which could be a reference to the scene where Neo is walking near the code. Although it is not the first time that a Matrix toy was painted in the code. There was a Matrix Code Agent Smith figure from 1999, which we happen to have in our collection. One of the clues that could indicate that the Analyst is a villain is that there are no other characters being sold as a villain. Past toy sets had heroes and villains together. Or is it that the Analyst is an ally, and the new Morpheus is the villain? We will be watching for more figures and other official Matrix merchandise that we will hopefully be able to show off on this channel. The other news we received not long ago was the length of the movie. We talked about the Matrix Resurrections premiere, which is going to last approximately 2 minutes. We revealed the exact duration of the movie, 2 hours and 20 minutes. An extended version is not expected because the Wachowskis are known for not being keen on the idea of having multiple cuts or versions of the same movie. This will be the only version. Now that Dune has finally been released, we believe that Warner Brothers will shift its focus directly towards Matrix Resurrections, which has a tough road ahead because it's going up against Spider-Man No Way Home in theaters. Any other big studio would avoid releasing a big budget film close to an MCU movie, but The Matrix is not any other franchise. Warner is confident in having The Matrix take on the cinematic giant, Marvel Studios. They are confident that we the fans and new people will go see The Matrix 4 in theaters. Warner is still taking the approach of releasing Matrix Resurrections in theaters and on HBO Max on the same day, which increases its exposure in comparison to its rival Spider-Man, which will only be in theaters. In the coming weeks, we are going to see a marketing battle between these two industry giants, and we will be covering it. Before we go, we have received continuous rumors about a second Matrix Resurrections trailer. At the moment, we have not seen or heard anything official about it. However, we do know that at any moment, this second trailer will release, hopefully with new scenes, and perhaps the reveal of the movie's villain. But do you agree? What do you think about the first Matrix Resurrections merchandise? Are you pleased with the length of the movie? What do you think about the Matrix and Spider-Man rivalry?
This is Zion, and we are not afraid!
So I'll go back and check in the morning, see if that boy actually hit the 1,000 mark or the 800 mark. Right, where are we? Scale of things.
As a parent, if you had the choice, you would be with your children all day, every day. But many times you don't have that choice, and your day-to-day responsibilities obligate you to leave them in the hands of someone else. A search for the perfect caretaker can be difficult, but your search is over. Welcome to Oracle Daycare, a place where every child is special. Here, your child can develop the necessary skills to face tomorrow's hardships, such as reading, learning to play chess, levitate objects with their mind, bend spoons, develop culinary skills with a house chef, and discuss incomprehensible philosophy.
There is no spoon. Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends. It is only yourself.
You have already made the choice to bring your child to this wonderful daycare. It's up to you to understand why. Oracle's Daycare, where every child has potential.
What?
You gotta come to the christening. Ain't taking no long.
Nonetheless, this has been a very interesting race, and I've learned a lot, grown a lot in the past couple months.
We've heard rumors that some men survive. Those are the scary.
You probably remember learning about the Egyptian pyramids at some point in elementary school. And even if you weren't part of the public school system, you were bound to encounter some information about them at a museum or in a book. These mammoths of structures are hard to escape. They're made of the grandiose nature. To put it lightly, the tallest pyramid in Egypt, the Great Pyramid of Giza, once stood 481 feet tall, but has since eroded down to 451 feet because of vandalism. Or you could better imagine this: the average 3-story building stands just 45 feet tall. So if we're doing the math correctly on this one, and we know we are, the pyramid would have stood at the height of a 32-story building. So who's responsible for the creation of these ridiculously tall and ever elusive mysterious pyramids? We'll get to the bottom of it today in this episode of Infographic Show, Who Built the Pyramids? Before we get into the nitty-gritty of who built them, let's start with some Pyramid 101, shall we? There are about 8 pyramids currently standing in Egypt. The oldest is the Pyramid of Djoser, and it's located in Saqqara, north of the city of Memphis. The pyramid was built in 2630 BC for King Djoser. Many of the more popularized and notable pyramids are at Giza, a city on the outskirts of Cairo, some of which include the Giza Necropolis, the Pyramid of Khufu, one of the 7 wonders of the world, and the Khafre Pyramid. Ancient Egyptians were one of the first civilizations of people who believed in an afterlife. They didn't see death as the cessation of life, but rather as an interruption. They believed that when a king died, a part of his spirit, or his ka, remained intact with his physical body. The mummification we've all come to know about, that has also been popularized in the media, served the purpose of preserving a king's spirit that they believe lived on. They basically hoped that the king's soul would return to his body and give it life again. So the king's ka was never left wanting. They'd also bury riches like gold, vessels, food, and furniture along with the dead king. Egyptians really weren't messing around with this belief. When the pharaoh was still alive, they revered him as an incarnate Horus, the god of the sky. And when he died, he took on the form of Osiris, the god of fertility and the underworld. His responsibility as Osiris was to set the sun, while the new pharaoh, his son, would raise it. They believed this symbolic relationship was important in maintaining cosmic balance. Back to the pyramids, though. They were built to last, made mostly of stone, like limestone, which was used to build the core of the pyramid, while white limestone was used for its outer casing and for the intricate walls. Granite was used on the walls inside, and basalt and alabaster were sometimes used for the floors. Egypt has sometimes been referred to as the state of stone, so there was never a shortage of it. The basalt they used sometimes came from the Fayum Depression, one of the major oases of the Western Desert, while alabaster was from Luxor, a city on the eastern bank of the Nile.
Dennis Stocks, an ancient technology consultant, believed that 45 workers were needed to move a 35,900-pound, and that's 16.3 tons, by the way, block, and 8 people to move a 6,060-pound block. As he noted in his 2003 book, Experiments in Egyptian Archaeology, Stoneworking Technology in Ancient Egypt. One single pyramid project could have taken between 20 to 30 years to finish building. For the longest time, it was thought that slaves who were at the behest of an evil pharaoh built the pyramids, and we can blame this fake news first and foremost on Herodotus, the Greek historian who wrote that the Great Pyramid was constructed by 100,000 slaves who labored constantly and were relieved every 3 months by a fresh gang. The BBC further argues that there's no way King Khufu, the 4th dynasty ruler of Egypt responsible for the commissioning of the Great Pyramid, had a body of slaves this large to work for him, and there's no way that all of them could work at the same time. We can also thank Western Hollywood movies in part for perpetuating the myth. Movies like The Ten Commandments, that epic from 1956, and we're not just saying that. It's literally an epic saga that ran for 220 minutes and portrayed slaves as the builders. Another misconception that circulated is that the Jews built the pyramids. This lie started when the former Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin made the claim when he visited the National Museum of Cairo in 1977. Amahai Bazar, a professor at the Institute of Archaeology at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, an Israeli archaeologist, refutes Begin's claim because it simply doesn't make any sense. No Jews built the pyramids because Jews didn't exist at the period when the pyramids were built, Bazar was quoted as saying. Dorothy Ressig, an editor of Biblical Archaeology Review in Washington, D.C., said this falsehood could have also stemmed from a verse in Exodus, which says something to the effect of, "So the Egyptians enslaved the children of Israel with backbreaking labor, and the Pharaoh put them to work to build buildings." That's not exactly the way the verse reads, but you get the picture. Then there are those people out there who believe aliens are the ones who built them. And let's all let out one huge, exhaustive sigh. This far-reaching theory looks a little bit like this. If light moves at 299,792,458 meters per second, and the geographic coordinates for the Great Pyramid are 29.979,245 degrees north, and humans weren't capable of measuring the speed of light with this type of accuracy until 1950, then advanced aliens must have time traveled back to Earth from the future to build the pyramids. People who believe in the ancient aliens theory also think that aliens built Stonehenge.
So we're building a civil rights case against
us closer to having a better idea of who built the pyramids,
One of my
how
men,
they were built, and how they did it.
named Ezekiel,
He
down
notes that
there,
archaeologists have agreed that the workforce behind the Great Pyramid was made up of two groups, the primary workers and the temporary workers. There were about 4,000 primary workers who worked on the quarries and were haulers and masons. They lived with their families in a pyramid village. The temporary team was made up of 16,000 to 20,000 workers who built ramps, shaped tools, made mortar, and were in charge of miscellaneous activities like supplying food, clothing, and fuel. They lived in a separate camp near the pyramid village. The state of the Nile was also important for pyramid builders to take into account. For the building of the pyramid at Giza, Mark Lanner, more on him later, and archaeologist Zahi Hawass believed that a skeleton crew could work on the pyramids throughout the year, but a larger force would labor in the late summer and early autumn when the Nile flooded surrounding fields. Archaeologists haven't discovered all there is to know about the villages and camps where pyramid builders dwelled, but excavations done between 1999 and 2002 by archaeologist Lanner shed more light. We know they slept on mud ramps, which served as a barrack-style bed. These barracks were in galleries, which can be thought of as huge dorms in which up to 2,000 temporary workers would stay. These sleeping galleries also had spaces in the back for cooking and copper work. In 2016, archaeologist and Egyptologist Yukinori Kawe spoke out to an audience at a taping for National Live. In that discussion, he said there was a vast amount of data on the outside of the pyramid, but not enough on the inside or core of the structure themselves, which would shed even more light on the construction techniques. Before going into his discoveries, he laid out 3 hypotheses for how the core of a pyramid would shed light on construction techniques. For example, if the inside of the pyramid was made up of horizontally arranged blocks, these would have been amenable to using a straight ramp. What he found was unlike any of these, though. He and other members of his team, some of which were computer scientists, climbed the Great Pyramid for 2.5 hours and found a notch with a crevice, and then a cave that was further in. The team didn't have a laser scanner that would have been too heavy and clunky to carry while climbing up, but they did manage to capture 20 minutes worth of video footage they then broke down further into 300,000 3D images. Through these 3D image renderings, they found out that the cave was used for packing of sand and debris, something called the chamber method. He noted that it was also used for the construction of Egyptian temples and cities. What the pyramid builders eat? Turns out they had no as much as 21 cattle and 23 sheep were sent to them daily from farms to get their meat. They also ate fish and banquets of beers. And while we noted before that these people weren't slaves, pyramid building came at a cost. Discoveries of their bodies show that they suffered from arthritis, and their lower vertebrae were impacted by the wear and tear. Ouch! As we mentioned before, an enormous amount of stone was needed to build these pyramids, so the Egyptians had to figure out an efficient way of moving the blocks that they eventually stacked up. An illustration in the 12th dynasty tomb of Hotep of 172 men pulling a 60-ton alabaster on a sledge has given experts a better sense of how they went about it. Those sledges they dragged across the hot desert sand were simply wooden planks with upturned edges. So, not the most sophisticated, but still clever. To make their lives easier, they'd wet the sand to make it easier to drag the sledge across. And they were old school when it came to measuring. They didn't use rulers, but a cube, which was equal to the length from your tip of the middle finger to your elbow. And the hand was a unit that served as the guide. The width of your hand was the thumb on the side. Cubits served them when they dug post holes at 10 cubits along the base outline and laid out the site in a grid. Pyramid builders were precise in that they wanted to make sure the sides of the structures ran parallel to the north, south, and east-west axes according to how stuff works. To achieve this, they had to rely on nature instead of using compasses, which weren't at their disposal. The movements of the stars helped them identify which way was north, and then they used sighting rocks and circles to identify the rising and setting stars, or the sun's shadow. Finding out the other cardinal directions using lines and right angles then became a piece of cake. They were certainly a resourceful bunch. In his book, Engineering the Pyramids, Dr. Richard Perry hypothesizes that they might have also used a cradle-like machine that suspended the rocks and allowed them to be rolled by a few people. The Omiyashi Corporation, a Japanese construction company, went so far as to conduct a test in 1996 to see if a 2.5-ton block could be dragged by 18 men over 18 meters per minute. And the study proved that it could be done. In 2013, French archaeologist Pierre Tallet and his team discovered the papyrus writings of a pyramid building official simply named Merer in Wadi al-Jarf, an area on the Red Sea coast. And these gave an unprecedented look at how sophisticated the teams worked, specifically when it came to obtaining copper. And their method involved an L-shaped jet that was 200 meters long. According to Merer's writings, they used this harbor to protect a fleet of cargo boats that would sail to the Sinai Peninsula, where copper would be mined before returning to Wadi al-Jarf, then using the materials for the construction of the Great Pyramid. Now, using all this, you can whip out your impressive pyramid building knowledge at the next cocktail party when the topic comes up, or simply slide this like friend who thinks the aliens built them. You make a choice. The pyramid building brainy aliens that secretly run our show and pay us to convince you that they didn't build the pyramids tell us that you would enjoy learning more about ancient Egypt. So check out our other video, Unbelievable Stuff They Didn't Teach You About Ancient Egypt.
Screenshot.
Later, not having Wi-Fi when you want it. Hello to a phone plan with full speed hotspot tethering. Hello Google Fi, a phone plan that can.
Wu-Tang. It's the only way we can get to a better future. Now it's just a big dream. What's gonna be different this time? I have my brothers. We're gonna make it.
Okay, let's talk about it. In Naruto,
Right.
absolutely, the answer is yes. But the real answer is no. Give me a second. I'll explain it. But before I get to explaining anything, how about you explain to me how you haven't already liked this video, subscribed to me, and find out you're thinking you might like this video. I'm thinking you might like the rest of the show. We'll talk about whether or not Naruto is Let's talk about what exactly.
If one of these sensitive
Well,
entities ever
in
tried to
definition,
prove
it's
over,
kind of
don't
broad. It's
they'll kill
basically
you
just
and
a
me.
power granted to Naruto by Hagoromo
black folks hugs.
Nobody
Ain't no disrespect, my brother.
essentially Hagoromo
Take out
granted
slim
him
like
this
you did Richard
massive
Doucette,
power
and
up
in their
and
minds,
strength,
that's just
stamina,
gonna justify
but
everything they
beyond
be
that,
doing.
the thing that most
It's
people
gonna make
ask
shit even
about
worse.
is
But
the
shit,
truth seeker orbs,
you
a
ready to
power
just
that
go out and kill 'em
Hakuromo
all,
passed
huh?
to Naruto
No,
that we
just the
haven't
ones that
seen
matter.
since the war. So people are asking, if Naruto has this incredible ability, why doesn't he use it more often? I mean, he could stop any big rods throw into people. Why is he not using that? It's very powerful. And the thing is, he just ain't Naruto.
Motherfucker,
Now,
is you out of
have
your
you
goddamn mind?
create a truth seeker orb? 6 of them by Hagoromo and Suzuki. And during the duration of the battle, they were either thrown into Kaguya's dimension or entirely destroyed. But why could Naruto use them and not create them? That kind of feels dumb, right? And in a way, you're not wrong, but in a way, you're also wrong. Break this down when you talk about Peke Mora, or the combination of all 5 chakras. And some know Peke Mora are Ashall Killing Blow, Sword of Blow, and Truth Seeker. Simply having all 5 chakra anchors in the game doesn't allow you to create Peke. It simply allows you to use Peke Mora. Just in case you're wondering, the only people we know with Peke Mora are Kakashi, Naruto, Sakura, and I think there's one other, but I'm kind of lost for the moment. Before you say Sasuke, it's not. He doesn't have any. In order to actually be able to create a Peke Mora, you either have to be a descendant of Kaguya or a Ten Tails Jinchuriki. The conventional knowledge is actually that you only can be a descendant of Kaguya and use them, but Infinite Tsukiyomi and God Nativity World trees are both Peke Mora, which means that Madara and Obito access them. That's why we only ever see Kaguya, Mora, Hakumo,
Yep.
Madara, and
Get cool.
Are you kidding me?
Move, man, move. Let me try.
Technically, a Peke Mora will also
There ain't no end to these good old boys. Now hit those notes.
Here's the thing we learned in the last that it's actually Mora, so everything's so is the recharging
Thought
card.
you wanted to keep a
Really,
low
what do I
profile.
know? I am
Yeah, well, we on
drastically
our
off
ass now,
track.
so a low profile don't come and go. Now get us the fuck out of here.
Yes, ma'am.
New Peke Mora, even though he has all 5 chakras in the game, he can use them and give it exactly what happened with Hakumo. But the question still exists. If you can't use your sequels, you can really use 6 pack mode. The answer is still yes. We know that based on how it looks. In the war, one very subtle change in Naruto's appearance from Jin mode is that he really I know this is a lot like Sage mode stuff, but the
I
yellowing of the ice and
Let's get on the MJ.
as to why they made the change.
Jesus Christ,
It's
Foxy.
subtle.
I've dealt with asshole
I
cops before,
cannot
but
tell. So
goddamn.
yes, even though
They'd
Naruto
rather ice
reverted
your
back
black
to
ass as soon as look at you.
Now I get what you've been saying. Those motherfuckers are a whole new brand of intense.
And
still
keep your eyes open
access
for more
into 6
kids as
packs,
we head through town.
which recharges much like his own and Kurama's pocket. So without the truth seeker orbs, what does it do for him? It's like I said earlier, it's just a massive strength, speed, and endurance. Of the same 6 packs chakra is actually shown to us by the seal that is on his hand when he activates his Jinchuriki mode that identifies 6 packs of chakra there. But the real question has now become since Naruto has destroyed Rama, and the same 6-path mode seems to be intertwined with his Jinchuriki, and he's still using now that Rama is gone. And this is where my answers have to get a bit speculative, because we haven't seen Naruto fight since Ishiki battled him. But think for a second on why Hakuromo gifted him his chakra in the first place. It is a gift to those with iron will and the determination to never give up. To think something like that would be tied to the presence of Kuramas, kind of insane to think about. What's more plausible is that Naruto, when he goes into 6-path mode, is trying to
MJ
achieve
Farmer's up
the
ahead.
fullest amount
What's
of
MJ
strength.
like?
And until
Sinclair born
Naruto
and
goes
raised.
to Rama, that
He a white boy looking to make a difference.
the combination
Trust him?
Of
was
course I
simply a way
trust him.
for him to get
Although
a
I
strong
think he got more
muscle.
balls than
So
sense.
yes, even though
Sounds like my
Naruto
kind of
has
people.
lost Kurama, the
does
Is it up here?
Sage of Six Path mode. And considering the fact that the Sage of Six Path giving him his chakra and giving Sasuke a full ass Rinnegan means that gift is a lot more powerful than we're giving it credit for. In fact, Naruto may be a lot stronger than we think he is after losing Kurama. We don't know how much of that post-war arc power was coming from Kurama or the Sage of Six Path mode, because they were never activated independently. Was Kurama just acting as a battery for Naruto in order to allow him to fulfill his chakra and fight for longer? Maybe. Or maybe Sage of Six Path mode is kind of just the whipped cream on top of the sundae. We don't know until we see him fight again. But I'd say the hopes have to be pretty high. So yes, in summary, technically Naruto does still have Sage of Six Path mode. But no, he doesn't have Sage of Six Path mode in the way that you identify. He doesn't have Truth Seeker orbs that he can magically summon. He's lost that ability. But he will still wash the taste out of the mouth of all 5 Kages, probably simultaneously, in anyone whose last name isn't Truth. Then again, maybe I'm just trying to calm myself down after all. Who knows? But if this video calms you down at all, maybe go ahead and like and subscribe to the video. Hit that noty bell, because we talk about anime 3 times a week here, and you're probably going to enjoy every single time. I don't know whose idea it was to simply just kind of change Naruto's eyes under a cloak of orange and yellow fire, but whoever it was, why? Change Naruto's eyes under a cloak of orange and yellow fire, but whoever it was, why?
I use Rocket Lawyer to protect my rental properties because I'm a landlord. Not a I have enough jobs. Like being a plumber! So if I'm totally underwater with lease agreements, Rocket Lawyer has all the legal documents right at my fingertips. I'm also an electrician. But if I'm ever in the dark about a legal question, I can get expert advice from a Rocket Lawyer network attorney. Even when I've got my hands full, I can securely sign legally binding contracts from anywhere. They even helped incorporate my business, because who has time for that? Rocket Lawyer, not me. Rocket Lawyer, confidently legal.
So let's say you have to read an incredibly long email from your boss that you have to finish before the big meeting starts in 10 minutes. Or you're cramming for an exam the night before, but can't bear to keep your eyes open to read one more textbook chapter. Or you're reviewing a dense legal document that could change your life forever. Or you're proofreading your thesis one last time before you submit it to make sure there aren't any errors. No matter what you have to read, we could all use a second pair of eyes to help us retain information and put our best foot forward. Enter Speechify, a reading assistant powered by artificial intelligence and deep learning, and designed consciously for students and working professionals who want to get more done. Speechify does the reading for you, so you can spend less energy reading and more energy comprehending. Choose your listening speed. Start at 230 words per minute and build to 500 words per minute, which is 2.5 times faster than most people read. Choose from a range of incredible voices that use human inflection, so you can stay engaged without getting tired. Don't have enough time to finish? Take your reading on the go with a single click. Best of all, Speechify is free. Click on the button to download now.
Send them my way. Look after yourself. Ain't you two a sight to behold?
Yeah, we just a regular old Beauty and the Beast. Lincoln here is Beauty.
Name's Mish, but most folks call me MJ. How's the drive in?
Got a warm welcome from the
This video is kindly sponsored by Fast Toys. If you're based in the UK, you have the chance to win the ultimate work-from-home setup, worth up to £5,000. If you can answer my tricky test question, that is. Link in the description, and I'll explain more later on in the video. Hey, 42 here.
You got hit by
Many
an
of us
RPG.
grew up with a
Next thing I
favourite
know, I'm on the
number.
ground with
It
part
was
of
a
the
bit
tail
of a
rotor sticking out of
necessity,
me.
really. What's your favourite
Yeah,
number?
helps
Was
with
one
the
of
pain.
those all-important questions kids used to decide
God
if
damn.
others were
Some of my
worthy of
best
their
work.
time.
That
Along
cop
with,
in yours got
who's
us
your
around on our
favourite
missing
Ninja
folks.
Turtle?
Mickey?
And
Yeah, Tony
are you
Simmons
with the
got locked up
Rebellion
down at the
or the
station.
Empire?
Don't suppose there's an
And
easy way in and
not
out of this.
everyone
No,
grows
not
out
unless
of
you invisible.
Marissa Mayer,
Them
former
motherfuckers don't leave
CEO
much
of Yale,
chance.
has a
Well, I
thing
should probably
for
wait until
highly
dark.
divisible
Try to get in
numbers
when
like
most of those
12.
assholes have gone home for the day.
People around the world seem
That's
to
what I
be
was thinking.
drawn to the number 7.
Them's a slippery
And we
bastard.
all know someone who
Unpredictable.
has to have the
So I'ma
volume
tag
set to
along
an
and help you
even
find
number.
things.
But when it
I'm gonna
comes
be
to
outside.
forming an unhealthily strong attachment to numbers, few of us have taken it quite as far
MJ.
as the ancient Greek philosopher Pythagoras.
Get in touch with that cop
You'll
friend of
probably
yours.
recognize his name
Tell him to
from
call in
those
sick.
excruciatingly dull maths
Boy, that
lessons of your
motherfucker
childhood.
long gone.
So let me dig those painful memories back up for you. Pythagoras' theorem states that if you take a right-angled triangle, square its two shorter sides, and add the results together, the answer will equal the square of the longest side, the hypotenuse. Or, expressed with algebra, a to the power of 2 plus b to the power of 2 equals c to the power of 2. Funnily enough, it turns out this simple equation, undoubtedly one of the most famous in the whole of mathematics, wasn't actually by Pythagoras or it was Babylon that was founded before Pythagoras or sometime around
Hold on now, baby. We ain't done.
How exactly Pythagoras' name came to be inextricably associated with a theorem that was already ancient when he was born is unknown. What's also unknown are many of the details about Pythagoras' life, and that's a shame, because what we do know is downright bizarre. You see, Pythagoras, it turns out, was the leader of a strange cult that worshipped numbers and had some extremely weird practices. So, without further ado, here's what I didn't tell you in maths class. Fast Hosts is a UK-based web hosting company which offers a wide range of products to bring your projects to life. Fast Hosts aims to support UK businesses and entrepreneurs at all levels with affordable hosting solutions. You probably already know that if you're looking to start a new business, or perhaps just a blog, you're going to need a web presence. That's where Fast Hosts can help you by offering everything you need from domain names starting at £1 and a fantastic web builder. And once you're ready to go live, you can use their reliable and secure web hosting with unlimited bandwidth. Personally, I love their cloud backup service. Making these videos uses a ton of storage. With Fast Hosts Cloud Backup, I can seamlessly back up my data, and should the worst happen, I can recover it. Test it out today by getting 5 gigabytes of cloud backup absolutely free. UK viewers have the chance to win the ultimate work from home setup, worth up to £5,000. If you can answer my techie test question they asked me to write. An employee of which company invented
Hold
the
on now, baby. We ain't done.
Visit the link in the description to answer my question and enter the competition today. Don't miss out. Pythagoras was born in Samos, a beautiful Greek island that was known for its talented engineers and lively festivals. He was fascinated with maths and astronomy from a young age and studied under several well-respected scholars. One of them, a wise old man who went by the name of Thales, encouraged young Pythagoras to pack up his things and head to Egypt, which was apparently the place to be for anyone who wanted to learn about life, the universe, and everything. Pythagoras must have really liked Egypt because he spent the next 2 decades of his life there, keeping himself busy by learning to speak Egyptian, visiting temples, and having lengthy, profound conversations with the local priests about the best way to achieve spiritual purity. After Egypt was invaded by the Persians, Pythagoras was taken to Babylon as a prisoner of war, where he happily hung out with a bunch of occult astrology priests known as the Magi. He was instructed in their sacred rites, found out all about their mystical worship of the gods, and basically became what can be best described as a maths wizard. We don't really know how Pythagoras escaped the Babylonians. Perhaps
The sheriff's station usually a
stepped
skeleton
down
this
the
time of night.
Surprised you
concentrated
didn't go in and
maths
snatch the
lightning.
files yourself.
Whether
I thought about
weaponized maths
but
was involved or
I
not,
suppose you deserve to have a
returned to
little fun.
Thanos around
you
520
No
BC.
fret. I'll be
Once
keeping a
back
bird's
in
eye
his
view on things
hometown,
from
he
nearby.
formed a
Give you a
school
heads up
called
any
the
way I can.
Semicircle. I'm guessing this was before he discovered his deep love of triangles, and this became the place to discuss justice, woodness, and all those other concepts the ancient Greeks enjoyed philosophizing about. Pythagoras himself, however, preferred spending time alone in his
There's
man
me up
cave
here.
outside the city. After a couple of years in Samos, Pythagoras moved once again, this time to Croton in southern Italy. There, he used his charisma and charm to climb the political ladder and eventually serve as an advisor to the elites. The local authorities were so impressed with his intellect, they asked him to set up a school and pass on his immense learning to the young people of Croton. But when they said school, what Pythagoras apparently heard was crazy-ass religious maths cult, because his students, who came to be known as Pythagoreans, developed some of the strangest practices in history. To gain entry to Pythagoras' school, you couldn't just rock up and take a seat somewhere at the back. You had to undertake a 3-year probation period. During this time, you'd be judged on everything from how you responded to criticism to the way you laughed. You'd also be tested on your memory, concentration, and speed of thought. Once you were in Triangle Club, there was a strict hierarchy. Members were divided into the Akusamatikoi, or listeners, and the Mathematikoi, or learners.